$26,762,201. Welcome back, guys. This may not be surprising, but today we're going to talk about Brandon Sanderson's secret project. We've all seen the Kickstarter. It's about 30 million, I think, now. I should check what it's exactly at, because last time it was at about 25 million. And at the time of recording, this is at exactly $26,762,201 and still going up. So this will break the 30 million easily. There is some information about the new secret project. I will link Brandon Sanderson himself reading the story, or the first 5 chapters, in the description below, because he's released that video last week. This video will also contain slight spoilers for both Mistborn and Stormlight Archives, mostly Mistborn Era 2 and Stormlight 3 and 4, so that will be Oathbringer and Rhythm of War. But the story itself is actually the focus of today's video, the secret project number 1, aka Tress in the Emerald Sea. This is a story told by Hoyd. We don't know yet to whom it will be told, but according to Brandon and his spoiler stream that he had last Tuesday, we will be able to find out to whom according to some timeline clues. Personally, I think it's Wax, because he was his carriage driver, or Jasna or Jasna, whatever her name is pronounced like, because of course he is her partner as Wit in Stormlight Archive. It's also being told over several days, with the interruptions being edited out. So this means it's a character Hoyd has stuck with, so not necessarily something like, for example, Kelsier at the end of Mistborn or during Secret History. It might also be Sazed, as he is Harmony right now, and we all know Hoyd is a world hopper. But I think Jasna is the most likely candidate at the moment, because we know the story is being told a few years / decades after it actually happens. He mentioned that in his spoiler as well, because I checked out that 2-hour video. It was very long. It's not centuries. It's, let's say, I think it's about 25 years. So maybe it's told in between Stormlight Arc 1 and 2. Who knows? That being said, the story itself, as far as we know for now, in the first 5 chapters, is about Tress, who lives on a small saltstone island in the Emerald / Verdant Sea, and she's in love with the Duke's son. Of course, he does not tell her he's the Duke's son, but she's smart enough to find out that he actually is. And this is a cute budding romance that's not cringy or clingy. It's just some teenage stuff that does not strike me as boring either, but the actual story begins with them, of course, meeting and some day-to-day stuff by Tress. But I think what we have seen will be Arc 1, because at the end, Charlie, the Duke's son, goes away with his father to be married. But when his father returns, I think it's about a year later, she actually sees that the one that's with him is not his son. And through some connections she has, because, she's been used to going to the Duke's house, she acquires knowledge of Charlie actually being sent off to marry the big sorceress, which in practice is actually being sent off to die. So after spiraling into depression, well, that's a bit overstated, but after having a generally rough time, she decides to rescue him. And that's where the story cuts off for now, so after 5 chapters. So that's why I think this will be Act 1, because it's a nice closing of a small arc. And now we get to see her journey towards it, and the journey back, of course. There's also some badly hidden warlord criticism, or war criticism in general. in the story itself. We also see the Iriali being mentioned. The Iriali being people whose religion was mentioned in both Mistborn Era 1, but they are now living in Roshar, yes. So we know they are on the 4th planet in Roshar, or they call it the 4th land. But we don't know if they originated on the planet, which is called Lumar, by the way. That's been officially confirmed by Sanderson. Or if they originated on Scadrial, or if it's between or after that. We don't know that yet. For now, we only know that they were on Scadrial first and on Roshar after, but we don't know if it's before or after. Which is another reason why I suspect that that Hoyt is telling the story to Wax. She's also got this little obsession with cups. The exact reason is unknown. There are not... I think she collects them, and then she gets sent 4 or 5 cups by Charlie as well. I think she gets sent 5, but she also she only receives 4. The 5th one is never arriving, or does not arrive with her. But she has few cups, one of which is an Iriali cup, and we all know that the Iriali have vanished on that world as well. So this one is a bit Cosmere related, but the rest of her cups not so much. In general, the story isn't that Cosmere related either, except for, of course, Hoyd and the Aethers, which is something I'll elaborate on later. I think overall this was a great introduction to the book, which will be about 100,000 words and is just a story told by Hoyd. We see that he really had fun in this. There are some one-liners that remind me of Terry Pratchett, which is of course Brandon's favorite author as well, so this is not surprising either. The story itself will most likely be about love and pirates, considering their seas, and the dangerous spores, of course, which we'll be elaborating on later, and knowing Hoyd, of course, also some long monologues. That being said, let's continue on to the world. As I've already mentioned, it's called Lumar. And Tress herself lives on this small saltstone island, which nobody's allowed to leave, except for the Duke, obviously. And they also eat and drink a lot of salt. They even put salt in their water to counteract the spores, which I'll elaborate on later. The saltstone ground also means, of course, that they cannot farm, relying on compost vats on one side and on merchant ships on the other side. And if they're ships, you can sail. This means that they can sail the seas of spores, the spores that are dropped by the moons, the 12 different moons, because air gets blown upwards from the bottom of the ocean, or the sea, depending on how you see it, which makes the spores act like a liquid. It's the same thing with when you blow air through sand, it also acts like a liquid. This either means they can control it, or they can predict it, the air that comes out. I personally think they can control it because we know there's a sorceress, and I personally think that, considering Brandon confirmed that there will be magic users, they will not be as abundant. They will be abundant, but not all of them will be as strong as a sorceress. Speaking of moons, there's the 12 moons, which is a part of the alien-like world building. It's an aether planet, but there are unique aether. It's not an aether planet, but there are unique strands of aether on it, which are most likely the moons because they drop the spores, and they all orbit or circle the planet in different orbits because Brandon confirmed that they don't just all go around in a circle around the equator. They're just still calculating the exact math of it because it's not actually known yet how they'll do it, but Brandon has already incorporated it in the story, so they'll just have to make it work probably. Those moons all drop different kinds of spores in different colors as well, and they all react differently to water. They all react the same to salt, though. They get just stripped of all power, so to speak. But when they come in contact with water, something dangerous happens, or something happens in general, not most likely, not all of them will be dangerous. And every kind of spore, every color of spore will have different reactions to water. We've also established, or Brandon has also established, that the people of Lumar are able to fly to those moons, but Tress is unaware of it, or reach it. Not necessarily fly, they can just reach the moons. How exactly? Raffo for now. What's left to say about the world? I think the only thing, yes, somebody asked during the spoiler stream if it was in the cognitive realm, because you know, when you're in the cognitive realm, land is sea and sea is land. We've seen that in Shadowsmar, in Stormlight Archive. We've seen that in Secret History, but Brandon confirmed it's not. It's in the actual physical realm. Now, for the spores, which is probably the most important plot point of this little book. As I've already mentioned, there's 12 different kinds. They do 12 different things, and they have 12 different colors. They also react heavily to water, while being countered by salt and silver on one side and the other side. I personally think that the 12 moons, or the 12 aethers, will probably line up with the 10 essences that we also see in soul casting, in Stormlight Archive, with the addition of light and darkness, considering the title of Brandon's unfinished book was Aether of Night. Some people have read it. I personally haven't read it. I still have to get my hands on it. I don't know how. I'll check it out later. But I think that they will not necessarily match, but be very similar in the least. There are also other similarities, because we all know white sand, the lichen in white sand, all react heavily to water, and the spores do. It's not been confirmed yet, but this does indicate a relation, or at least a connection, between white sand and Tress in the Emerald Sea. So this might be rain that will be difficult to deal with. Brandon has already mentioned that it was meant to be a plot point in the book. He's probably already written it in. He did not want to spoil, so he just raffoed it for now. Except that he did mention rain was difficult to deal with. There are other kinds of magic that the spores also have this connection with. This one was confirmed by Brandon, because the spores hate silver, and I don't know if you have read the Arcanum Unbound, but there's a story about Threnody on there with the shades, and those shades are repelled by silver, and the spores are countered by silver. This indicates connection, which is confirmed by Brandon, as I've already mentioned. So I think the shades might be something like aether-bound cognitive shadows. The aether-bound, by the way, are the people that are connected to the moons, or the aethers. Maybe they're cognitive shadows, I don't know. That's not necessarily mentioned. He was very vague and very obscure during that stream, and sometimes it lasted an hour, so I do have to admit, keeping my focus was a gruesome task, at least for an hour long. So I might have misunderstood some things as well, because, English is not my first language. That being said, he did confirm with, of course, the naming of the sorceress, that magic can be used by a select amount of people. And those are the aether-bound. And this is not like a bond with a spren, with an Ahel bond, or with the Sion from Elantris. This is more like a warlock bond in Dungeons and Dragons, where one entity can bond multiple people. And he has already confirmed that this is the case. This is one entity that bonds a lot of different people, so multiple people can actually be bonded to one of the moons, or maybe multiple moons. I don't know, that hasn't been confirmed yet either, but it hasn't been denied yet as well. The aethers themselves work like Aether of Night, so he has said the mechanics are the same. For those of you who have already read it, I haven't yet. So please leave a comment to explain me how, because I can't really find anything about it. If I look it up, it just says Aether of Night and a bit of story synopsis, and that it was this unfinished novel or unreleased novel of his. So I don't really know a lot about the mechanics of Aether of Night, but this would be interesting. And I think that's all the information we got from the live stream concerning the story itself, Secret Project number 1, Tress. There have been some mentions about his other Cosmere stuff, his other secret project, especially number 3 and 4. He didn't mention them, but he has mentioned that they will be not necessarily darker, but the tone will be a bit heavier. Not really. I think it's more like you can compare Secret Project 1 and 2 to Mistborn Era 2, and then Project 3 and 4 will be most likely more like Mistborn Era 1 or Stormlight, maybe not as heavy as Stormlight, but somewhere in between, you know, just the middle ground. And more Cosmere involved, because for now we only have the Urali and Hoid. And speaking of Hoid, we have Dragonsteel. Sanderson has also mentioned that Dragonsteel will be told in Hoid's voice. So this might also be, well, we know it's his origin story, but this might also be Hoid telling his story to someone else. Or Hoid just telling the story to us as the reader in an actual second person. For now it's not really second person, but it's not first or third person either. Secret Project 1, it's somewhere in between, because he's telling it to someone else, not really breaking the fourth wall to us, the reader. But that's it for us today, guys. Today, as of recording, we are Thursday, March 10th, and I believe that Brandon has promised us that he will release 5 chapters of his books every week. So I'll check this one out, and of course his spoiler live stream next week, which is on Tuesday for you, but it will already be Wednesday for me, because it's, I think it was about 3 a.m. for me in the middle of the night, so I just checked it out Wednesday morning. So we'll see each other next week for Secret Project number 2, which is as of yet unnamed. Mission accomplished, guys. Bye now.